Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Media Show. I'm your host, Nick Palavita, and today we're going to have a very special guest we're going to discuss esports, which is an interesting area of the world, a fast-growing area of the world. And first of all, we're going to bring in our special expert on the esports network. He also runs the Gamers Den on the IBM TV Pod TV network. Let's bring in Jatovy McDuffie. Jatovy, welcome
How's
to
it
the show.
going?
It's going good. I can't complain. And then we're also going to bring in this gentleman who is actually very well known to have one of the highest IQs in the world. He's a person out of Los Angeles, California. Let's bring in Rick Rosner. Rick, welcome to the show. Good to have you here. Okay, I hope you know a lot about
Hey,
esports.
I'm having bandwidth problems, so I don't know if it's going to
Oh,
be spotty for me, it looks like.
oh, bandwidth issues in California. I couldn't certainly understand that. But Rick, I must admit I don't know much about esports because I kind of like missed that whole area. But as I looked at the demographics, Rick, it looks like that the esports has about $180 billion in revenue compared to the NFL, which is big in the United States since we broadcast internationally. Some people don't even know what the NFL is, but its revenue is only 25 billion. So Rick, do you have any background in esports or know anything about before we bring in Jatovy, who's our subject matter expert in this area, which I'm not. So Rick, I was going to put the ball in your court. Oh, did you hear the question? Esports. I think he froze up. Okay, he's right. He does have bandwidth issues. Okay, so Jatovy, you're our subject matter expert on esports. Tell us a little bit about this.
I don't know if you're talking to me. I can barely hear anything.
I can barely hear us. Oh, yeah, you're having bandwidth issues. Can you hear me? Okay.
That's the old commercial. Can you hear me now?
Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now? Okay, Jatovy, you can probably launch into the esports area because you know a lot about it. You run the Gamers Den. Have done it for quite some time. Tell us a little bit about this industry, which I just see $180 billion industry. What's your thoughts?
So, I mean, it's the gaming industry is that big $180 billion behemoth that's only growing steadily each day and each year. If you think about it, esports is only a small sliver, which esports itself only crossed over $1 billion last year. It's been growing roughly about 50% each year. So with that small little sliver, which is that $1 billion industry of esports, should be $1.5 billion now. That $1.5 billion industry of esports is a huge piece, is a small piece of the $180 billion industry of video gaming. Right now, it's also driving that industry. One of the biggest games that came out was Fortnite. Right. That brought a lot of light to the casual individual because they hadn't really heard or followed or kept up with what was going on in the video game industry. However, what's strange, though, before I even get to that, what's strange is that esports has been with us ever since the inception of the first video game of Pong. So that's really what esports is. It's just two people or a competition between two people with a video game. So esports itself has been growing for years and years and years and years. And it's been, growing, like I said, 50% roughly about each year since about 2013, and it's been growing. Other countries globally saw the actual the monetary value in esports. Countries such as South Korea, where they built a lot of their economy surrounding it. On top of that, the global market in gaming around mobile games is huge, and that also brought a lot of global individuals into the fold of esports. So yes, esports itself has been growing and growing and growing. You have a big company, Epic, which is located here in North Carolina, right down the street in Cary, that created a game called Fortnite. That actually wasn't the first what they call last man standing or battle royale type game.
Right.
You have a game like PUBG or Player Unknown Battlegrounds, which actually came out before Fortnite. Nobody really paid attention to PUBG in terms of the casual market or the individuals that were just not really gamers. But Fortnite took the concept, threw it on top of the game of Fortnite, because Fortnite came out and it was a survival game. It was, and honestly, for an analogy, it was a weird take on like The Walking Dead or all the other zombie horror movies. However, they took aliens, and that was what was, captivating. It's NITE. Uh, but that was what was taking over the world. You had to save people, and that's the way the game went. But then they threw on the battle royale mode, and that took off because Fortnite itself became for that casual person, that mom and dad. They didn't see Fortnite in the light that they saw Rainbow Six, Call of Duty, Modern Warfare, Call of Duty, Modern Warfare, just all the other shooter games. Even though you're doing a third-person shooter game, Fortnite was cartoon, or it was very Disney. It had the Disney principle behind it, and that's what made it huge for a lot of families, and a lot of kids jumped on it. And then once the one player, his name was Bugga, he ended up winning $3 million. And that's when your casual fan jumped in and said, hey, I now kind of want to learn more about esports. And then in the US, it started blowing. Globally, it's always been big. You've had League of Legends, Dota 2, and Hearthstone, and Overwatch, and all these other games that were blowing up globally, especially League of Legends. League of Legends and Dota 2 are the number one and number two game.
Toby, this growth in board games seems like it's had another impact, not just on regular sports, but I was actually, because I was just curious, until becoming even more friends with you. We've been friends for a while, but becoming more friends because of this show and our friendship tightening and all of that. I have definitely, learned a lot about video games through you and everything. But historically, I was always into kind of the phone games and board games. I told you about my family and our kind of board game history and all of that. And apparently that industry is also growing, because I just saw the new statistics that said that the total revenue in the board game segment is expected to reach in the US $3.3 billion in 2022. And the total revenue is expected to show an annual growth rate resulting in a projected market volume of 4.51 million by 2026. And there's, of course, in-app purchases, which kind of ties to the video game industry of board games as well. So I was just wondering, is this kind of a auxiliary relationship of board games to the video games, where the board games are also getting a boost in their revenue share as well?
So what people don't realize is how the gaming market, because it became $100 billion industry and people looked into it, once money is there, people will follow, and people will try and get a part of the pie.
Right.
And so the esports or the gaming industry helped the board game industry, because if you notice, there are a lot of board games out there that are based around video games.
Yes.
And a lot of those card games became video games, and that increased the popularity of that board game or that card game.
Right.
You can now get, if I remember, you can get a Monopoly version of Fortnite or something. So there are just a bunch of different games that are associated with video games. And like the card games themselves, again, once card games really hit the mobile market, such as Hearthstone to all the other ones that are out there. Yeah, it helped the board game and that market. It really did. But also, if you look into NFTs and all the other, that whole market,
Right.
there have always been in RPG games, for example. RPG stands for role-playing game. not rocket propelled grenade, but it stands for role playing game. Inside of role playing games, you end up having to purchase particular items to improve your statistics or your abilities to do particular things, and that became a thing. Then, as the RPG market evolved, and that actually added other things to other parts of the video game market. But once that began to evolve more, you began to do different things in the gaming market or in that RPG world. Now you're designing your home. Now you're designing particular things and having to purchase these extra things. Well, guess what? What are NFTs? Non-fungible trades.
Right.
What are you doing with those? You're just sitting there purchasing something that can be copied onto another computer or another server. And it's nothing that you can actually hold tangible. That's what you buy in an RPG. You buy a home, a skin, like in Fortnite. We'll go back to that because a lot of people know that one. In Fortnite, you don't purchase items to improve your statistics of your character. You're purchasing different looks. So you're purchasing what are called skins. So your gun can look different and compared to other guns. Your outfit can look different and you can make it your own. Well, what is an NFT? It's the same exact thing. So the things in the video game market had bled out into the real world. And now people are making money off of NFTs, trying to do cryptocurrency because you have
that bleed out and everything. We actually had Scarlett on the media show last week, and of course, she's very active in that BitBasil and also the metaverse space. And a lot of what I see us when we're doing Gamers Den is almost like a video game version of a metaverse. So you're actually getting to create your own villages, your own cities, your own this other kind of thing. So, Jacoby, I'd love to hear your thoughts about the similarities between what is now becoming a popular fad, for lack of a better term, and everything, the metaverse, and what was already existing in the video games. Because it seems to me that the video games were already creating metaverses before this whole metaverse term became popular.
It was. I mean, you have MMO stands for Massive Multiplayer Online. What's an MMO? You're a metaverse. That's really all it is. So if you take a game like World of Warcraft, one of the biggest games ever played, and it's still one of the largest games it has one of the largest gamer bases out there. World of Warcraft is a metaverse. They created a world. You get your friends to come in and play with you. Right. There are tons of MMOs that are like that. One that just came out, which a lot of people are playing, Lost Ark. Lost Ark just hit. It's Amazon's. It's an Amazon property, but they bought it from, if I remember, it's an Asian company that they purchased it from. But in Lost Ark, what are you doing? It's a metaverse. You jump into a massive multiplayer online. You create your own island if you want. On that island, you can have people come and join your island. Or come and look at your island. Hey, this is my universe that I've created. Hey, you want to join my guild? Everybody already knows in the real world what a guild is. It's the same thing in the metaverse or in the massive multiplayer online world. So you join separate guilds and do different things. So yeah, it's the gaming world like the sports world, like the military, like NASA. All these entities have been on the forefront of things that we end up doing.
Yeah. I have good news for you, Nick. Apparently, because I was checking out some of the other things like we were talking about with games and everything. So I was checking out, and I know I'll check out chess in a second, but I also know that you and Sasha aren't just into chess, but y'all are also sometimes into the card games. And I just saw that the card game market generated $5.6 billion in revenue worldwide in 2020. And by 2025, it was expected to have to exceed $6.8 billion. So it has also been going up in revenue as well. So if you just want to get your game of poker or bridge or whatever your card game of choice is, shucks, you might even want to just play War, which is one of the more simplistic games, and all of that. It can definitely even impact this whole economy of games and all of that. So that was some statistics that came out of Statista, or Statista, which is give you a lot of this kind of statistics and things
And-
about the various industries and all of that. So I
And
haven't
again,
looked up chess yet, but I'm sure chess has been going up as well. But it does look like card games like poker and bridge and the rest of them are also steadily climbing as well.
I mean, I hate to, again, this is where the video game market blends in and makes it so much easier. You can, spades. There's a spades game, video game that you can play on your phone. Every card game that you listed, Mark, you can play on your phone. You can play anywhere. It just gives you the opportunity to play it at any time you want to, rather than, hey, let me go ahead and get five. Let me get 3 other people so we can sit down and play spades. Let me get 5 other people so we can play poker. No, I can jump online right now, jump into a lobby that maybe has about 20,000 people in it, and find me a quick game of poker, spades,
Or
blackjack.
sometimes just play it solo, because I can guarantee
Yep.
you right now that
Same
if I
thing
was
with-
to call my aunt that lives right here in Durham where we live at and everything, if she's not taking care of her husband who's been going through some health issues and everything, there is a good possibility that she is playing a game of spades right now, just like there's a good possibility that my mom might either be doing that or one of the other card games, because I know oftentimes when I call them just to check in, that is what they tell me that they are doing. And so, and you are right, it is on the computer. It is not them playing with each other. It is them doing it on the computer because it's easily accessible. So there's a good chance that if I was to pick up this phone right here and call mom, or call my aunt, one of the ones that is one of the 2 that is still living, that they would probably be in the middle of the game.
I mean, take for instance Scrabble. Scrabble is super popular, but the thing is how it's morphed. You have words with friends.
Right.
You have all the different variations of playing the different word games. Wordle it basically comes from Scrabble. But Mark, the game that we what is it? Words Online, or
Words Online, right.
Words Online that we sat and played.
Right.
That you can get a whole group of people on your stream to sit there and play words on stream. So yeah, Scrabble is now, it's helped out because you have tons and tons of individuals that play these video games and are introduced to so many things. The game of life, everybody hated playing the game of life. I didn't want 15 kids, and I didn't even have a car that could fit it. But you know what? Now when I play the video game, it's hilarious to see the car packed with kids. So now these individuals are introduced to the game of life. Guess what? Now I can do, hey guys, let's go to the store. Let's try the board game.
Oh, Rick, are you back, or is your bandwidth working now?
I had to change settings. I'm now basically sitting on my router.
Oh, that's okay. But that was my question, Rick. Was you were a big game person? I mean, you're one of the top geniuses of the world and everything. That's why you are known, as well as being a great comic writer for a certain host and all of that. We won't talk about that host and all of that at this particular time.
I'm huge with Words with Friends. I've played over 5,000 games, but with straight up video games, I kind of missed the boat, and I feel like it would be a huge time investment to catch up, to be able to play, Call of Duty or games like that adequately. That it would take 1,000 hours of me playing for me to get good. So I've kind of, not.
Well, I
But
think
Words
that's
with
the
Friends. Every time
misconception.
I'm, on the toilet, I'm Words with Friendsing, which is
See, I
bad.
think-
I mean, they showed that in the movie. This is 40, I think, with Paul Rudd. Leslie Mann's always pissed at him because he's sitting there playing on the toilet.
And the funny thing is, though, is the misconception that playing video games is the Call of Duties, the Fortnites, the Maddens, and all that stuff. You're playing Words with Friends. You're playing a video game. That's
but the rapid fire,
that's
managing.
like a different style, because there's so many genres of games and types. From driving's not rapid fire. There's a beautiful game that I played a few weeks ago. I think it's called The Color of Blue, and it's mainly just a point and click. Let me see if I can I think it is The Color of Blue. A Memoir of Blue. And it's mainly just a point and click. It's still a video game, but the coolest part about it is, and these are the games that I enjoy, or the ones that take me on a journey, tell me a story. And A Memoir of Blue is a story of a daughter who lost her mother but she was growing up and it was a single mother, and she didn't understand what her mother was going through, and she ended up hating what she was doing. And she was supposedly this Olympic swimmer, but she hated being in interviews. She hated everything about swimming because she thought her mother neglected her. But then one day she sat down and went through her memories, and those memories were of her swimming and her growing up. And it's a very beautiful story, and it's a point and click, but it's still a video game.
Yeah, but Jacoby, aren't these video games addictive? I mean, I didn't really, I've never played any of these games you've mentioned, but I actually played a lot of chess in my younger, more halcyon days, and still play today because it's addictive. Aren't people addicted to these games after a while? Just get addicted.
So you just answered your own question.
Yeah.
You said you play a lot of chess because it's addicting.
It was addicting, right?
So
yeah.
Yes, you can get addicted to video games, but you can get addicted to anything.
Yeah,
it's just, you have to be able, like Rick was talking about how he plays Words with Friends. And even in the movie, Paul Rudd was playing Words with Friends on the toilet. I mean, he's playing a video game. Is that being addicted? If it becomes if it begins to hamper your life and, slow you down and give you any detrimental effects, that I think is where people think the bad part of the addiction is. But that is with anything.
Yeah. Okay, Rick.
I look at personalized digital information like I look at food. 2/3 of American adults are overweight, which doesn't mean it means that it's not something wrong with people in general. It means that food got super delicious, became irresistible. If you look at food in the 1940s, it was disgusting. In the Depression, it was disgusting on purpose to make people eat less because nobody had money for food. And then food science came along, and now food is cheap, plentiful, and super tasty. And so everybody just eats and eats and eats. It's the same way with digital information. We love information, especially information that's personalized for us via social media or via games we're playing. Yeah, it's addictive. We want it, and it can be delivered. There's a trend, I think, overall a history that people are hungry for stuff that has more and more information density. That if you look at a superhero movie now compared to a movie in the 1970s, movies from the 70s are unwatchable. They're so slow. They don't contain as much information. A superhero movie has so much stuff happening in the frame. Endgame with 40 superheroes all fighting at once. It's so much. But we're trained to eat more and more of it.
Mm-hmm. So basically, it is addictive.
Yeah. I mean, it's like everything else, and I think the term addictive becomes such a negative term that people say, well, it's addictive, so there's nothing really healthy about a video game. But just as Rick is talking about that information density, there's so much information within a video game that is healthy. There's so many things, even going to Fortnite. We'll jump back to that because, I mean, again, that's a game and a name that everybody knows. Within Fortnite, you can learn city planning.
Right.
You really can, because you can sit there and build your world. It gives you that opportunity to do that. And you can go through city planning. In Civilization, one of my favorite games, Civilization or Civ 5, which came out, basically it's a trip through history. And I mean, the historical context is skewed a little bit, but it gives you leaders that you can look up. It gives you time periods that you can talk about and find out more about. Okay, well, in the Mesopotamian time, what were the actual troops, or what were the buildings that you could build? The Ignatius Falls. If you've got a land that has Ignatius Falls that you learn about, what's the importance of Ignatius Falls? So there are things that you can learn within the video games, because yes, that information density, that's true. And that's why video games have evolved so much.
Hey,
There's
Jacoby,
just
speaking
so
about information density, and I wish I could think of the book. I was just reading it a couple of weeks ago, but it was a book about a person that was basically, I think he was reading the encyclopedia from A to Z and all of that. And he was definitely trying to learn all along those lines. And one of the popular games is out there, both in video game space as well as in different other spaces, including card games, is trivia games. So I was wondering, and I'd love to hear maybe Rick's thoughts on this as well. Would we rather have somebody that is quote unquote known as a genius like Rick on our trivia team, or is it better just to have your average Joe on a trivia team because they might know more about a lot of different things, whereas Rick might be more concentrated in what he knows and all of that? But like I said, I do know that that's part of Rick's history and all of that. So which would you rather have on your trivia team?
You probably don't want me on your trivia. I have a disastrous history with trivia. I lost more money on Who Wants to Be a Millionaire than anybody else in the history of Who Wants to Be a Millionaire. It cost me $40,000 to go on that game because they gave me a bad question. I got super pissed off. I sued them, and it cost me 40 grand by the time I was done to lose that lawsuit. So, I mean, what you want are people like Ken Jennings who bar trivia all the time. Like somebody who's playing trivia, an average of 3 hours a day for year after year. It's Gladwell's 10,000 hours rule.
Mark, I actually had Ken Jennings and Rick. I had Ken Jennings on my trivia team in Bellingham, Washington, because I used to play on they had the Whatcom Literacy Council had a trivia meet every year to raise money for literacy, and they had some really good teams. I said, gosh, a friend of mine said he knows Ken Jennings and he moved up to Seattle. I said, well, let me give him a call, see if he'll play. And I know gamers, they're addicted to games. Okay. So at first he's going, well, I don't know, then all of a sudden he had nothing better to do because he had already, Jeopardy was far behind him. Right. And he said, yeah, sure, I'll come up. So he came up and played on, we had a 3-member team. He came playing the team. Hard guy to play with for this reason. He knew all the answers that I knew and answers I didn't know. In other words, I'm going, what good am I here? The guy knows everything. But there was only one question out of 24 I knew that he didn't. It was a sports. He told me to go to sports. It was a weak category for him. But he was really good. He actually stayed there and then became the host of the Whatcom Literacy Council because the Whatcom Literacy Council says, well, you can't have him on the team anymore. We're going to make him the host. So he stayed there until he got a call, ring, Alex Trebek died. We have a host position for you. But his original training of being a host was the Whatcom Literacy Council Trivia Bee, which he hosted many years afterwards. He's not doing it this year, I noticed, because he's now the host of Jeopardy. So long story with Ken Jennings. But I would agree with you. He's a guy you'd want on your trivia team because that's all he does. It's like some of these chess players like Magnus Carlsen and, and Yerlemansky. All they do is play chess. That's the one you want on your chess team. Okay.
Jennings is also incredibly funny.
Yeah. He does have a sense of humor. If anybody could follow it,
I mean, he knows so much. He can put jokes together with pull ingredients from 3 different areas to.
Yeah. But when we go back to what Jatovi says about how games can help you in your life. I remember years ago, because I grew up before, I never played any of these video games because I was too old. The video game, we didn't even have computers. We had punch cards when I was in school. But here's what we did have. We had the Avalon Hill games, which people don't even probably remember. There were board games. You'd play Stalingrad. You'd play Revolutionary War. You'd play all these Anzio. Okay. And I played all those when I was a kid. Then in the 9th grade, they had a trivia contest. And I answered all these questions. What was Operation Barbosa? I knew what it was. Where's Minsk? I knew where Minsk and Smolensk was. Not because I read it in school. It's because I was playing board games. Mm-hmm. In other words, I go, well, I played all these. They called them Avalon Hill. I don't know if Avalon Hill is in business anymore, but there were all these board games. So yeah. I agree with you, Jatovi. Even though they're addictive, they can actually be very educational for people to get into not all the games, but some of the games. And
but you play one of the greatest games of all time, Nick. You played one of the greatest games of all time because you were involved in a field that I was actually just reading about in LinkedIn yesterday and everything, but it's a field where people are trying to figure out if they want to know their end destination. You know, a lot of times we don't want to know our expiration date, but now there are these clocks that are coming out that are going to calculate not your biological age, but you know how much longer your body is going to last, and they're calling them aging clocks, and they're different variations of these clocks. But they said that those clocks already exist, and it comes back to gaming because those clocks exist with the actuary tales that your other business puts together. They said that those are some of the most accurate ones that already exist, and that comes back to the whole gaming concept, because they were like, yeah, we're creating these gaming aging clocks, but those people that do actuaries, they already are pretty accurate. As a matter of fact, the joke, and Rick will get a kick out of this, is the person that was commenting on it said that their wife was not too happy because I'm thinking they were probably in their 60s, and the actuary table told them that they would be living to 95, meaning that the wife had to put up with them for another 35 years and all of that.
Yeah. Well, yeah, Rick, go on.
I want to talk about why video games are addictive. And it's the same reason food's addictive, that all our tastes are based on, you know, what we needed when we were out on the savannah in tribes 100,000 years ago. You know, we like salt, we like sweet, we like fat, because back when we were in the grasslands before civilization, that stuff was rare. And so we craved it because it was like, we needed it. It was high calories. And it's the same deal with information. On the savannah, there's not that much decodable, comprehensible information. So we were hungry for it, hungry to figure out the world. Now we live in a world where, you know, video games are meant to be figured out, meant to be played. You're meant to see patterns, figure them out. And it's attractive to figure out regularities in the environment, even if the environment is a video game. Mm-hmm. Because if you don't figure out regularities in the environment, you die.
Mm-hmm. Right. So it has become, yes, Chatovi.
Oh, I was going to say, I mean, not only with, so yes, games, you know, have that addictive quality just like everything else. However, touching back to when you had said that not all video games are educational, for the most part, all of them really have an educational side to it. From even your Call of Duties, which is a first-person shooter, but you can learn about different historical facts within Call of Duty. From Battlefield, you can learn about different historical facts within Battlefield because they wrap the storyline around that. Then if you take the obscure and look at even Halo, for instance, Halo is a first-person shooter that's set up in the future. If you take a look at the actual play with any entertainment show that you watch, it could be The Expanse, but in Halo, there's a storyline going on. In Fallout, one of the biggest RPGs, there's a problem within factions. So you have to learn how to deal with different communities and figure out and learn exactly what the culture within this community is and understand that culture before you can go to this culture, the community within this culture. Even though they're fictional, you still have to do that in real life. I mean, you still have to learn about different cultures and to be as inclusive as possible, so you're not attacking somebody. So there are tons of things that you can learn within every video game. It's just that you have to treat it as a parent. You have to treat it as any movie or any TV show. You're not going to show your daughter porn or your son porn when they're 12 years old. It's not going to happen. That's not smart. That's not a good parent. But again, you can educate them later in life if they come to you and say, hey, look what I found on the internet. So you can educate them about that. Even though that's wrapped around something that's, you know, some cultures see as taboo, some individuals see as disgusting. But the thing is, it's going to be in our kids' lives. It's going to be in our adult lives. So educating them before and educating them to what it actually is helps. It's the same thing with video games. If you see
along those same lines, and I may have asked you this a long time ago, but I don't remember the answer. How much fact checking is there? Because I remember a game you showed me that I really loved the game, and it was about underwater oceans and all of that. And I think it might have even shown a sturgeon, and actually saw a picture of a sturgeon not that long ago, and all along those lines. And it had different fish and different underwater things out there. But then as I was watching, I'm going like, did they actually do the research to figure out what's underneath the water, or is this just speculation and imagination? And like you said, the parents need to fact check some of these things that may be true or may not, because maybe in the video game the Loch Ness actually exists, and
that is
he
all
doesn't.
dependent.
But I'm just saying in the video game he might exist.
That is all dependent on the game itself and the game developer themselves. So you can have a game like Under the Blue,
Right, that's the one I was thinking about.
Yep, where it gives actually a information about each sea creature, but of course those sea creatures are not going to be in the same area as they put in Under the Blue. So you can educate your child, hey, these are creatures under the sea. This is neat to see. But then if you go to a game, we'll say, let me think, what's a good one? We'll say go to Lost Ark. Lost Ark creates a world. None of this, and the context of the world is what you have to base your information off of. You cannot base your information off of, well, that tree doesn't get chopped down in 5 minutes. Well, okay, yeah, that's true. But in this world, it does. So you have to base your context around what the world is built. It's the same thing when you watch, for example, Game of Thrones. One of the key elements in any form of entertainment is called suspension of disbelief. It's basically when you create a world and abide by the laws that you created in that world to make people believe this world is real. So in Game of Thrones, for example, in the first couple of seasons, it was perfect. They abided by the laws and the rules that they created. And the last few, it was like, hey, we're just making money. And the last season of Game of Thrones was crap. But yeah, I mean, they broke every rule that they built. But that's what it is you have to sit with your child and understand what they're playing, know what they're doing, because it's just like you got to know what they're watching. Right. So it's the same thing.
Game of Thrones got ahead of their Bible. They had all the novels by George R.R. Martin, which is thousands and thousands of pages of material. And I think by the end, they'd run through that, and they were kind of on their own. Lost was a very frustrating show because for 6 seasons, they promised, we know exactly what we're doing. All these mysteries were going to resolve in a very satisfying way. Turns out they were bullshitting. They didn't know. They were just scrambling. And by the end, they didn't answer many questions at all. But shows, as they're being developed, generate a Bible that should be, like, by the time the show hits the air, should be hundreds of pages. If you look at the Star Trek Bible or like the Star Wars Bible, I'm sure after, like, Star Trek is almost 50 years old now. And I saw the Bible at one point, and it was about yay thick. But that was, I don't know, 20 years ago. It's probably, so much, mythology and rules. They had like they had to redo Warp Drive because it didn't work the way they'd originally, they changed what it meant because the physics didn't work. They figured out 20 years in. And it's the same thing with video games, that you're looking at the mental work that the creators have done that informs the game, but isn't right up there visible to you. It's part of, exploring the world.
But remember, Rick, in Lost, they gave us a polar bear.
But I'm going to say, has a lost narrative ever actually worked, and can it work, the whole lost narrative? Because I'm thinking about the old lost shows that existed. I mean, did we ever really get Gilligan off the island? Did we ever really get Twin Peaks solved and all of that? And those are some lost narratives. I don't know if the lost narrative can actually work with having a correct ending just because of the nature of Lost. But that's just my thought. I wonder what y'all thoughts about it.
It can, because if you think about every Lost narrative is similar to every zombie narrative. You're trapped in a world that you cannot get out of. You cannot see civilization anywhere. The Village, M. Night Shyamalan, however his last name is pronounced, I always butcher it. But he did The Village. The Village was lost, but they're trapped off the side of an interstate, which made no sense. The Walking Dead is basically you're going from island to island, being trapped by zombies. in video games, they've done it for years. You've got Lost Ark, where you're trapped on an island, but you get a boat and then you're traveling in a
But that's
particular
not the point.
world.
If you get out of it, then the narrative is no longer lost. Because if we get out of Atlantis, and Atlantis is a lost city and everything, then the narrative is no longer lost. That's what I said. Is it possible to truly get out of a lost narrative?
Well, they've even done that. Castaway.
Okay.
Castaway, he was trapped on an island forever and he got out, but he wanted to go back because the place was completely different. The old cartoons, the Country Mouse and the City Mouse. Right. Mickey Mouse did it. Tom and Jerry did it. But that's what it is. The Country Mouse got out of the island that was the country, saw the city, and it was not what he expected. So he wanted to go back to the country. So, I mean, it can work.
It's like lying. The best lie sticks to as close to the truth as possible. And the closer you stick to the actual world, the more solutions you have as your story runs into problems. Right. If you start like throwing a bunch of magic in, then there's a risk of it becoming too wish fulfilling. Your characters get everything they want. And it's like the realer it is, the wider a world you have access to.
Yeah, to come to your point, that's my problem. And I used to love the series. I don't even know if it's still on, and I'm not the biggest vampire fan, but I did like the early versions of True Blood. And then they started going really mystical and weird and everything along those lines. And even, what's the one, Jacoby, that it has to do with, it's somewhat based on the Bible and all of that. But even they started getting even weirder than the Bible and everything. It was on regular commercial TV. It was the two brothers. And they were always going around and running into the devil's character.
Supernatural?
Huh?
Supernatural.
Thank you.
Oh, okay. Right. A question I have, Jacoby, and I'm going to bring us to Epic Games because they're actually located in the Research Triangle. Here's the story. They bought the Cary Town Center Mall. Mm-hmm. It was an indoor mall. It was huge. It had Dillard's, it had Macy's, everything. Okay. And they spent $100 million to buy the mall so they could put their headquarters there in Cary. Right. And I thought, great, because it was like 1 million square feet and they were going to reposition all the places, all the, shops to have their headquarters. But that's not what happened. They bought the mall for $100 million and then they flattened it. Okay. So, and I was going, whoa, to have the economic power to buy a mall in the center of a major city, tear it all down to put office buildings for their Epic Games, which runs Fortnite. They have to have some business plan that makes a lot of money. Mm-hmm. So explain again, how does these video games like Fortnite make so much bloody money? I know it's played all over the world, but how can they get people to send them money?
So think about this. Well, the story with what's going on with the mall, because remember the mall was run down. It was now they were doing consignment sales out of there.
Right. Wasn't doing too good. Right.
Yeah, they weren't doing good at all.
But still, to spend $100 million just flatten it, I thought I was pretty impressed.
So they're supposed to put in was it an exercise center and a whole bunch of a sports arena, a whole bunch of mess in there. Right. But Epic makes money the same way that NFTs have made money, cryptocurrency has made money. That they were, other. If you get your phone, any in-app purchases and stuff like that, that's what happens. You make a free game, people buy into the free game. People want to make themselves in that free game. Well, to do that, you know what you got to buy? You've got to buy some skins or outfits, and you make your outfit your own. And they'll release particular outfits at particular times. They just released a set that's around Wu-Tang and Nas. Well, guess what? A lot of people are going to buy the Wu-Tang outfits and a lot of people are going to buy the Nas outfits because, Wu-Tang's an old school rap group. Everybody loves them and they're going to buy that. Same thing with Nas, who's old school rap group, or old school rap guy. But hey, he's just released a couple of albums. You know what? I'm going to buy that too. So they release these items that you have to purchase to make your character look a little different. And just like NFTs, just like cryptocurrency, you buy into it. Hey, it's now mine. So what? Other people can buy it. But hey, that's me. That's what I look like. So that's how they end up making money.
So it sounds to me, Jacoby, is that the metaverse that our friend, who's at Mark Zuckerberg, keeps talking about, it already exists in the video game industry. It
That's
just
what I
hasn't
said
been,
earlier.
it hasn't
It
been
exists.
repositioned to the business industry yet. Would you say the video game industry is actually ahead of the curve when it comes to the metaverse compared to the business
So
industry?
Zuckerberg wanted to copyright the word metaverse. Metaverse has been around forever. It's we've had, again, World of Warcraft, one of the oldest, biggest metaverses that we've had. Grand Theft Auto 5, a 10, 12, well, it's actually a 11-year-old game now, still going strong. It's a big metaverse. They put people in the city of Los Angeles, and you drive around, you get a job, you can do whatever in Grand Theft Auto 5, and that's your metaverse. Same thing. They did another game, Red Dead Redemption 2. You're a cowboy in old USA, and you're going around, and you can get your posse with you and go around, get a job, make a farm, everything. But that's a metaverse. But what Zuckerberg is trying to do, it was smart for them to buy the Oculus. The Oculus is a phenomenal product. When they bought Oculus, then that's what they tried to, well, they made it into a standalone device, again, that's pushing VR technology forward. Again, I'm happy they did that because it's a great device. I would recommend anybody get it. But they did exactly what we're doing now with jumping into a camera. So they're using the Oculus in VR, where you create a world and you're in VR, and now you're able to touch and be around other people. You can look around and you can have somebody beside you rather than looking at a screen and it being flat. Now you're in a 3D world. At some point, somebody's going to create one to make it 4D so you can smell stuff. But yes, you're in a whole full 3D world and you're looking around and you're touching things. I mean, that's just the VR version of a metaverse, which is no different than the 2D version of the metaverse that's existed for a long time.
When I was a kid in the 70s, the big excitement was space. We went to the moon. Every time there was a launch, they'd let class out, and we'd all sit there in front of the school's one TV and watch the launch. Now there's very little excitement about space. The big excitement is about metaverse and cyberspace. That it's the computational world, the information processing. That we wonder where the aliens are, from the rest of the galaxy. They're all at home, like lost in their own worlds of information processing. Why, go to the effort of spreading out across the galaxy if you can simulate everything and stay home?
So I think a lot of it has to do with, we are by nature social individuals or social beings. And the pandemic put a spotlight on that big time because a lot of the depression kicked in. People couldn't get out to others. You had, domestic abuse was on the rise because we can't get out. We can't see people. We can't interact with people. Well, in the gaming world, that's always been there. And with the metaverse and stuff like that, it gives you the opportunity, not only, if I'm unhappy with the way that I look, guess what? In the metaverse, I can create how I want to look.
Yeah.
I can, there's a game that just came out, Cyberpunk 2077, where you create your body, you're cybernetic, and you have all these extra abilities that you can do. In the metaverse, I can do that. In real life, I can't. So
to tell me though, but you raised an interesting question, which is, in some ways, haven't we become, and it actually is kind of coming back to what Rick just talked about as well. And by the way, I'm glad you brought up that example of watching the space and all of that, because I remember doing the same thing with baseball. And of course, we're in the baseball season. I remember being about to hit the 6-0 number, watching those playoff games when the playoffs were during the school year, and a teacher would bring in, and we'd watch a couple of the games that way as well, because that was more popular. But I'm wondering, are we not in some ways becoming, through the metaverse and the video games and everything, more connected but less connected, because yes, we are able to be more connected to our people around the world. I've got tons of friends from Scotland to Africa to a number of other places, but as you just said, with the pandemic, a lot of people started working from home, staying at home, and not doing as much socializing as they used to do as well. So I just wondering your take on that, and I'd love to maybe hear Rick's and Nick's thoughts on that as well.
I'll agree. We've become more connected, but less connected, more connected mentally and intellectually,
Right.
less connected physically, because the pandemic kept us separate.
Right.
But we are able to reach out and touch each other more so on a regular basis because we have the technology to do so. And in the gaming world, again, it's always been that way, where you have that technology. And that's why it goes back to that healthy part of gaming is you really do have tons of friends online. You really do have that connection where I feel like I'm with people that I can relate with and trust.
Right.
Even though you have the bad section, but I feel I have buddies there and I can talk to them. I can hang out with them all day. I can sit up all night. And that's a healthy thing for a lot of kids because they in these games, they learn how to communicate and respond to situations that you really don't think happens in gaming, but it does. Teamwork is a big factor in esports and gaming. And that's where a lot of these kids learn it from. But yes, physically, I think we're losing the boat, but intellectually and friendship wise, we're coming really very well connected because of the technology.
Yeah, we also notice on our network, we become internationally connected. Now, everybody hears from the United States, but a lot of our shows, Jatovi, so they originate from not from the United States. They originate from the one I was on earlier was originating from Malaysia, and then they originate from South Africa, Switzerland, etc. So, and where I saw Fortnite doing real well, they don't just have the U.S. market; they sell that stuff all over the world. You know, I mean, it's incredible how small the world is when you go to the internet.
So gaming itself is international. All games, because it's, you play it on the PC, it's pretty much international. Yes, it's similar to movies. Certain countries ban particular things. For example, Doctor Strange 2, which is coming out, is being banned in Egypt. Because, I mean, they're upset over
Doctor Strange 2 is being banned.
Yeah, Doctor Strange 2.
Why though? What's the deal? What are they doing?
They're upset about the potential LGBTQ plus community be involved in the movie. There may be a character who could be gay, and so Egypt is banning the film. But nonetheless, it is still an international movie. Gaming is the same way. It's all international. Fortnite is big across the globe. Minecraft still has the biggest base of any game. Like I said, League of Legends and Dota 2, because they're so huge in Asia and in the Asian market, they have probably the biggest base in esports worldwide. So you have all the MINE.
I tell you, I don't play these video games, Jatovi. So
I'm gonna get you hooked on them, Nick. I'm gonna get you hooked on them.
I hate to say it, my grandkids play them all. They talk about it, and I go, I have no clue what they're talking about. So it's their thing.
The futurist and science fiction author Cory Doctorow suggests that international tribes might form around when people are active. That if you're a night owl, if your online activity is after the rest of the family is asleep, that might mean that your tribe is in some other part of the world where it's daytime and everybody's active. There's that old saying that no man is an island. And that saying was a lot less true centuries ago. We're getting more and more connected. Elon Musk is trying to implant like mesh or something in people's brains
Yep.
that allow for information. I think he's killing his experimental animals right now. It's not going very well for him, but something similar is probably, that we're not hearing about, is probably happening somewhere where
Well,
you
he's
can
buying Twitter right now. I think that deal is already going through.
Is that going through or not?
I hope it doesn't. Oh,
Yeah, well, the last I saw, and we mentioned it on the news earlier, it sounds like it's going to happen later today, if not tomorrow.
yeah, they're
that's
in the middle
scary
of
because
debating.
he's he's a robber baron and a little bit of a nut, and
And he has $40 billion that he can use to write a check to buy a whole company for himself. The thing that got me is he's not buying it. It's not like Tesla's buying it. He's just buying it personally, like when who was it? Jeff Bezos bought the Washington Post. He just bought the whole thing.
Well, the funny thing is,
Okay.
the reason, because remember, the reason Jeff Bezos bought Washington Post was because they started posting the information about what was it, his girlfriend?
Yeah, his girlfriend, now his wife.
And now Elon Musk is buying Twitter because of the problem he ran into. Well, I forget what company it was. It might have been Tesla that he ran into.
Tesla or SpaceX, one of them.
Yeah, where he couldn't post against the SEC or yell at the SEC, and he wanted to put up what
you want to have a
told him.
microphone against the SEC.
Yep.
So Twitter gives you a big microphone. I mean, they have 45 million subscribers or more than that.
Yep.
I mean, so he just bought. The way I look at it, he bought a big microphone, assuming a deal goes through. Because last I heard, the board of directors was going to try to nix the deal.
Well, I think it was late last night. Going into today, they were saying that the board was considering.
Really? Okay.
I mean, money rules the world. So
Yeah, right. Yeah.
when $42 million comes up and you don't, and Twitter is actually a little bit behind on a couple of bills.
Yeah. And a lot of people don't know about Epic Games because it's privately held. It just had a $31 billion valuation on its last sale. So it is a huge company that because it's privately held, a lot of people don't know very much about it. So
also, everybody believes that Epic is famous for Fortnite, but that's not really what they're big for. That's not their. I mean, yes, Fortnite makes a ton of money because they made $400 million in 1 month before, based off of just Fortnite, because people buying skins. However, what Fortnite does and what they've created is what's called a gaming engine. A game engine is what a video game is built on, and what they have done is create one of the best game engines out there.
Really?
And they've had that engine for years, and tons of companies, when they're building a video game, they grab the Unreal Engine.
That's the Unreal, right?
They build it, then they have to pay a portion off of, like Street Fighter V was built off the Unreal Engine. Every Street Fighter game afterwards is going to be built off of that.
Right.
And so any money that Street Fighter gets also has to go over to Epic.
I know we're going to wrap up, Nick, and everything. We'll come back next week and everything, because the thing I want to know is whether can a video game make you super smart, and do you need to be super smart to play a video game, and all of that. And maybe that's what both Rick and Jacoby can let us know next week.
In the meantime, we're at the hour, so we want to thank our special guests, Jacoby, Rick Grosner, and the people around the world who watch this show. We'll see you next week on the media show. So we'll catch you all next week. Take care. Bye.
Thank you.